Tonight is the last night of this series. Now our theme for the school year is still focused around being year weary, but our series, this is the last night. And so I just wanted to recap for those of you that haven't been here to remind you what the past 4 weeks have been like. On Vision Night, I asked you guys a question on, are you different? And I'm curious, you guys don't have to give your answers, but have some of you guys figured out yes or no on if you're different? Yay, nay, maybe, still looking, still searching, kind of all over the board, okay. So we talked about, are you different? Are you the same as if someone says, oh yeah, that's just another Christian, or are you someone that sticks out as a true follower of Jesus? And so that was kind of the starting off of this year of what your weird's going to look like. And for the next week, in week 1, we talked about why we're supposed to be different. Talked about how God is different, how our God is a God of love and of grace and forgiveness. And Andrew talked about how God is different, so then we are supposed to be different like Him if we're supposed to be pursuing Him. And then Graham came in week 2 to talk about how we are supposed to be different. And one is to not be a poser, to take our mask off, to be the real us with other people, and that's the sinner of us, the good parts of us, all of it, just letting it all out and let people see. And so we need to take our masks off, and that's one way of being different. And then last week, Andrew talked about how another way of being different is by obeying God and not the world. Not conforming and just going along with the crowd around you, but really obeying what God wants you to do. So tonight, I'm going to be talking about how we are supposed to go where Jesus is. And I had a funny story this summer happened where I went somewhere where Jesus was, and it was the weirdest interaction I've ever had with Jesus. And so it kind of worked out perfect with the weird topic about going where Jesus is. So this just fits really well. And a lot of you guys know that this summer I went to Florida with my family. So again, just a few months ago. And we had 23 of us all in one house, very chaotic, very loud, little children running everywhere. There was drama. There was just kind of like a crazy week. It had its good moments, but it was just a crazy week. And I spent a lot of time at the beach because, you know, when you go to the beach, you sit on the beach. Like, that's what you do when you go there. That's why you're there. So I was down there a lot, trying to kind of stay away from the house that was really loud. Still being with my family, but it was just echoey when it was inside those walls. So there was this one day, I'm at the beach by myself because my family all went back to the house to have lunch, and I had a moment to myself at this time because I was rooming with my nephews, so I didn't really get time to myself. So this is the first time, really the one time I was just by myself, and I took so much advantage of that. And I just went into the ocean and I floated on my back. And I've learned I'm not very good at floating on my back. I would either go over the wave and did like a little worm in the ocean, or the wave just crashed on me and I would go to the bottom of the ocean and then come back. So it was still kind of relaxing, good moments. I was singing to myself, had a song stuck in my head, so it was really relaxing. But I was a little tired of floating and being crushed by waves, so I stood up and I saw a school of fish a few feet away, probably from like me to the wall. I could see these fish. There was about 20, 25 of them, and they were about this big. So not huge, but still like 20, 25 fish about this size swimming by you. I was like, well, that's interesting. And I'm okay swimming with fish, so it really didn't bother me that they were like right there, because I'm honestly in their territory, so I feel like I can't like make them go away. And so they're swimming by me, and I'm watching them, and the little kid inside of me was honestly watching them to see if they did something like Finding Nemo school of fish did, where they made a cool design. And I know they really wouldn't do that, but how cool the story would be if they like accidentally made this design, and I would come back and be like, guess what I saw fish do? Well, that's not my cool story that I have today. But I thought that would be cool. So I was just watching them, again, chilling in the ocean by myself. There were a few people down this way and a few that way. And this big wave comes, and it hits me. I get knocked over, and I get up, and I'm looking for the fish. But they're the same color as the sand, so it was really hard to see. And Florida water already isn't very clear. So I'm like staring, trying to find these fish, and I don't see them far away. Well, then as I look down, they're like swimming around my legs. Like the wave brought them right next to me. And being someone that's okay swimming with fish, what do you think my reaction was? Oh no, I turned into like a blender, and I just go crazy. And I'm like blending up the sand around me. I'm kicking my feet because, you know, like, and moving my arms, because if you are moving a lot, the fish won't come near you. At least in my mind, that's how it works. So I'm like moving a lot, making sure these fish don't touch me. I'm okay swimming with them if they're far away. When they're near me, I don't want them touching me. So I'm like going crazy, moving my arms, moving my legs, kicking them, trying to get them like, maybe they go away. I don't think I ever hit the fish, but I think if I like moved the water with my foot, then it would have pushed them away. It didn't work very well. But I was just freaking out, and then after some time, they kind of swam back. All like 20 of them. Swam back to where they were, still just kind of staying nearby, and I don't know why, because there really was nothing else around me, but the fish just kind of chilled there about that far away. And then I felt something weird, and I looked down, and one of the fish is by my leg. And he's just kind of like swimming between my feet, and I again just kind of start like trying to kick the thing away, because I don't want it touching me, and it's swimming around me close, and I'm like, go back to your friends, like, why are you with me? And the fish are just chilling over there waiting for their friend to come, and he just was chilling with me. So I'm getting a little tired of it. So I decided that I'm going to just leave and go sit on the beach. And I turned around. So if I'm like facing the beach this way, ocean's behind me, school of fish is behind me, I'm walking. This fish comes around, again only like this big, in front of me and starts swimming into my legs. Like it hits my shin, it hits my knee, I'm kicking, I'm like, why is this thing hitting me? And I have the weirdest thought, and I feel like an idiot telling you this, honestly. But my first thought, oh yeah, Lauren doesn't like that word, I'm sorry. But my first thought was, what if this is Jesus? I don't know why. I honestly, I have no idea why, but my first thought, and that's why I feel crazy saying it. I felt crazy in the moment, and if you're like questioning me, I honestly was questioning myself in that moment. I was like, why in the world would I be thinking about that? But my first thought, as I'm like trying to leave the ocean, and this fish keeps running into my leg, was, what if this is Jesus? And I still can't give you an explanation of why I thought that. But guys, I turned around and went back into the ocean. Because I think that fish wanted me to stay in the ocean, which isn't a good thing. I feel like if a fish wants you to stay in the ocean, that's not good for you. But in that moment, I felt like this fish is trying to push me back out into the ocean. And I was wondering if this was Jesus. So again, I have no explanation for you guys on that, but I listened to the fish, and I walked back out into the ocean. And I went back to where I was, and the water was only like this high, and the fish was this small. I'm like, what's this thing gonna do to me, honestly? Except its friends were still like right there, so I guess it could have done something as a group. But I'm standing there, and the whole time I just kept hearing or like feeling like God was asking me to trust Him. It's like, why in this moment? Like nothing big is happening. I was just trying to get out of the water. There was nothing like special about it. I just felt like I was done being in the water, and I felt like God was saying, trust me. So I was like, okay, God, I'll trust you, as this fish is still swimming around me, and I'm like my Jesus fish friend here. And I still was moving my legs a little bit, because now I don't want to kick my Jesus fish, because I felt bad, but I didn't want it touching me. So I was slightly like moving my legs, like, please don't touch me, but now it's Jesus fish, so I feel like I need to respect it. And I was still like, he was over here, his friends were over there, they never moved. And I'm like, okay, well, God, I trust you. Like, I feel like you're asking me to trust you, so it's time to leave. So I'm like turning around to go out of the ocean. Nope, fish says no. He comes back around and starts running into my shins again. And so I turn back and listen to the fish and go back to the ocean. And I mean, luckily people probably didn't know what was going on. They thought I was just walking around. But in my head, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm listening to a fish, and I think that is Jesus. It was so weird. And the entire time I even thought about, gosh, I have to be able to share this story at some point, because I don't know why this fish made me think of Jesus. But that entire time, I just kept standing in the water, thinking Jesus was swimming around my legs, and thinking about that I need to trust God. And so it was the weirdest place I've ever seen Jesus. And I stayed there until that fish swam back to his friends. So I was probably like 15 minutes. I just stood in the water by myself until this fish left me. So that's your youth director right there. But it was the weirdest place that I have ever seen Jesus in a fish. And I think that Jesus calls us a lot into places where we don't expect Him. Like, I did not expect God to show up in that way. I mean, I think that Jesus can work through a fish because it's God's creation, but I just did not expect that to happen to me, especially just at that moment, thinking that He's working in this fish, this little guy that did nothing, just kept hitting me in the leg. But I think Jesus shows up in places where we least expect Him. And when that happens, And we know that as Christians, we're supposed to go where Jesus is. And if he's in areas where we don't expect, then that means we might look different and weird. We might look weird because we're in an area where people don't expect us to be in. We might look different in the sense of like a girl standing in the ocean by themselves because they listen to a fish. Like, it's weird, it's different, but I went where Jesus was at that time. And so he constantly throughout the Bible is calling the disciples to follow him where he is at, to go where Jesus is. Whenever you look through any interaction that Jesus has with his disciples, they go to places like go and eat with the tax collectors, which are like the people that are not the popular kids. Like, people did not like the tax collectors, and Jesus brought his disciples there, and so it's like eating with those that are the wallflowers, or the people that are just like the jerks that you don't want to be around. Jesus went to them, and he brought the disciples to them, or he went to the people on the outskirts of town that were seen as unclean, that they were dirty, and if you interacted with them, then you would be dirty and unclean. So you're like, you going to people that you're not supposed to talk to because they're just dirty, and they're going to make you do stuff or make you unclean or in any other way. And so like Jesus went to those people and brought the disciples with them. The disciples went to the side of a mountain and had a really big picnic with 5,000 people. Like, they went to places that they did not expect to follow him. And Jesus constantly is doing that. And so if you have honestly ever attended church before today, we often talk about the moment whenever Jesus ascended into heaven. It was after he had died, he rose from the grave, he ascended into heaven, and he told the disciples to do what? To do what? You're mouthing it.
Say it out loud.
Say it out loud.
Isn't that like the Great Commission?
Great Commission, yeah.
Make disciples of all nations.
Yes, go make disciples of all nations. Baptize them. Tell the world about what I've done, and remember that I will always be with you. Like, that's what Jesus tells the disciples. He is constantly, the entire time he's with them, and even to the point where he's leaving them, says, go to where I am. Go to where I want to do things. Go to the places where you might not realize I'm there, and be me. Like, he is constantly saying that. And even now we have to look at it, and it's hard to say, like, when we look in the scripture, it's easy to think that a disciple is going to follow Jesus because Jesus is literally standing in front of them, so you're just going to follow the guy that's in front of you, so you can follow where he is. So for us, where is Jesus here? Where can we find Jesus here? If we're supposed to go where Jesus is, where is he here? And he says in Matthew 25, he foretells of a time when he comes back after he is ascended into heaven. This is a time that we have yet to see. We have not seen a time when Jesus comes back after he's ascended into heaven. And he says in Matthew 25, as we read into this, the time when in between him ascending into heaven and when he's going to come back, where he's going to be. So that's literally our time right now, because he's already ascended into heaven and he has not come back yet. So this is us. Like, this is who he's speaking to, is us right now. And if you want to follow along on the screen or on your handout, it says, but when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit upon his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep at his right hand and the goats at his left. And the king will say to those on the right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your room. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Then these righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? Or stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth. When you did it for one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. And you guys might have heard that passage before. But where is Jesus today? According to this passage, it's with the people that need him most, aka almost every single person on this planet. But he is with those that need him, that need his joy, that need his forgiveness, his grace, those that are hungry and are thirsty or are a stranger that they don't feel loved. These are the places where he is at. And when someone like you comes along that knows Jesus, like the disciples did, when you know his teachings, and you come and you show them love, you give them help in the area where they need help, you give them clothing, you visit them whenever they really just need someone, that's when they get to see Jesus. Whenever you go to where Jesus is, and according to this is where Jesus is. And so right now, you might be in a place in your faith, and I know we can be all over the spectrum, but you might be in a place where you know the Great Commission, where Jesus says, as his disciple, you are to go out and share about my grace and my love with the world. Go make more disciples. Like, you guys know that. Even I asked, and some of you guys know it. And so you know that as a follower of Christ, we are supposed to go out, constantly just go out and just tell people about Jesus. Be Jesus to the world. We say that all the time. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
As a church, we say that, which is good because we need to encourage each other in that. And so if you are in that place where you're trying to figure out, how can I go where Jesus is? Where do I look? How do I be Jesus? If you are finding yourself in that place, my challenge for you is look where you see Jesus doing something and join in. Anywhere. I mean, it doesn't have to be like literally outside of these walls. It could be people inside here, because there's people in the church that desperately need this too. But look for where you see Jesus doing something and join in. But, this is a big but before you are able to go out there and join in something that Jesus is doing, you have to find Jesus in yourself. Before the disciples went out into the world and did something incredible in Jesus' name and created more disciples, before they did that, they had to first choose to be a disciple of Christ in general. Before you can go out there and go where Jesus is, you have to go in here where Jesus is. You have to choose Jesus in your own life. You have to choose to find the light in yourself before you can go out in the world and show people that light. Because otherwise, if you're going out into the world to show people light and you don't know Christ's light inside of you, then really you're just doing that work for yourself. You're doing it to encourage yourself, to say, oh, I'm a good person. But if you're going out there to show God's light for God, then you are glorifying God. So before you go where Jesus is out there, you have to go where Jesus is right here. And so I don't know where you are on either side of your faith. If you are to the point where you're ready to go out there, or if you're still on the point where you're trying to find Jesus in here, the nice thing about here is that all are welcome, but we all have the same challenge that Jesus gives us. You know, on Vision Night, we talked about how Jesus calls us to be this light on a stand or a city on a hill, and we had sparklers. You guys remember, like, we went out and lit sparklers? And as much fun as that was, there was a point to doing sparklers also. We didn't just do it for fun. And that was that before you were able to spread when you were lighting a sparkler and you shared it with someone else next to you, before you're able to share that light to that other sparkler, you had to light yours first. And that's what we were talking about. When you were being weird and you were being different, you have to find the light inside yourself before you can show the light to the world. And so for this year, for the year of being weird, our challenge that we have is to be this light in the world, to be this city on a hill. And the way for us to remember, I'm going to put this down, we're going to build our own little city. Up here, it's going to look like a city of Legos. But, so pick one of these up. We're going to build our own city up on this stage. And this is going to represent us to remember God's light. Now, I know this is a cool, just little keychain, but we have to remember what this means. For us to be able to find where we go for God out there, we have to remember that we have the light in us ourselves. We have God's light in us. And so we, as a group, are accepting this challenge together. That we are going to build God's city on a hill in this town. And I've heard a lot of people say throughout this series, between different small groups or conversations one-on-one or just hearing you guys talk about it, that it's hard to go out and be something weird and different when Christians already are seen as hypocrites, which I completely agree. It is incredibly hard to go out and be different when Christians are seen hypocrites, so we don't want to be seen as that hypocrite. But when we're showing God's true light, when we're taking that mask off, when we remember that our God is different, and whenever we decide that we choose God, that's when his light will really shine. And so what we're going to do this year is we have a keychain for everybody. I'm going to set it up here as we enter into worship. I want you guys to take a moment to think about, for you, are you ready to accept this challenge? And I know this is a cool keychain, but don't take it just because you want a cool keychain. This for us is going to be a reminder. We're going to put it somewhere where you see it. It could be on your keys, it can be next to your bed, it can be in your bathroom, it could be anywhere, it can be in your locker, somewhere where you see it regularly. And when you see it, I want you guys to remember that you have to choose Jesus, and then you go where Jesus is. And so when you're ready to take on that challenge, and I mean really ready, if you're not ready tonight, we're going to still have these here. Because again, this is going to be all year long. We can't make this change in one night. Because, I mean, if we're trying to change the way that even people see Jesus because Christians have messed that up, that's going to take a while. So this is our challenge for the year. Hence, the year of weird. So keep it somewhere where you see. And when you're ready to take the challenge of, you know what, I do choose Jesus. Jesus is calling me to be a disciple. He's calling you to be a disciple. And when you do that, he's going to go places that you don't expect. He's going to go places that are uncomfortable. He's going to go to places that maybe are a comfort and it's easy for you to be his light. And in other areas, it's going to be a dark room and you are that only light. And this is that reminder. For you guys to see this and know, I choose Jesus. And wherever I go, Jesus is always with me. It's exactly what he told the disciples, and that's what he tells you. So when you're ready to take that challenge, you can come up here and take one of these. And whenever you do something this year where you accomplish that, where you show God's light to someone that maybe was difficult for you to do, when you see God in someone else, when you see that you have shined your light and you're a light on the standard, sitting on a hill, come back to Andrew and I and give us your keychain. And what we're going to do is we're going to build a city on this stage. So throughout the year, as you see more Legos up here, and you see things building of each one of these blocks is someone else in this room's example of how they were Jesus, then that is going to be living proof that God has his light in you and that you can do anything with him by your side. It's going to be living proof that it is possible for you to shine light in this world, as difficult as it is. And so you're going to give this to us as you accomplish it throughout the year. It might be months from now, it might be next summer, it might be tomorrow or next week. You'll come back to us, share it with us, share it with your small group, and watch this year as we build a city on this hill to represent the city that we're building out in Broken Arrow in our communities around us. And so we're going to have some time to respond, some time to where I want you guys to bow your heads and just pray and ask God for help for this challenge. Ask God to say, you know what, I choose you, Jesus. I'm going to take this challenge for the year because I want you to be in my life and I want you to be the light that I can show to others. Take this time to just reflect and respond to what God is calling you to do. To go out where Jesus is, but most of all to see the light that's in yourself. And then as you are ready, you can come up and grab a Lego piece. And take it just when you are actually ready. If you're not ready for a few more weeks, we're going to have these here. And so if you'll bow your heads with me, as we invite God into this place to call us, to commission us and send us out. Jesus, we cannot thank you enough for honoring us to come into your presence, God. That we come into this room, into this building, and that you are here, because God, where two or more gather, you are present. And Jesus, you have already called us all to be your disciples. You have come up to us, calling us by name, knowing who we are, knowing our heart, knowing where we sinned, where we've fallen back, knowing the areas where we've tried our best to show you, and you still say, I want you. I want you to show my light to this world. And so God, as we go on, as this year is going to have its challenges of trying to be your light, that God, that we don't let that darkness extinguish our light or make us hide it, but that we stand strong, that together we are a city on a hill, and that God, that you just help us to continue forth, being your love, being the people that we go to the hungry, we go to those that aren't just hungry for food, but are hungry for more, for love, for your presence, and that God, we can be those people that show your true face. So be with us as we go from here, as we pick up this keychain and this reminder, that we hold on to it knowing all that you'll do through us. And as we go throughout the year, that we get to see the proof of how you move among us. And so thank you, Lord, for calling us your disciples, calling us your brothers and sisters, and that all that you do through us. It's in your name I pray. Amen.